The air in the school hallway hummed with the low murmur of parental concern, and the occasional squeak of polished shoes on linoleum. Chloe's classroom door stood ajar. A sliver of light cutting across the floor, my phone felt heavy in my hand. Its screen dark after the third attempt. Then it buzzed, a connection. Daniel's voice, clipped and breathless, came through. "What's with all the calls? I'm on a business trip, swamped." Through the open door, I could see our daughter, Chloe, perched at her small desk. Her eyes, wide and hopeful, were fixed on me. "It's parent-teacher conference day," I said, my voice low. "You promised her you'd be here." Silence stretched on the other end, thick and uncomfortable. When he spoke again, his tone had softened into that familiar, placating rhythm. "Honey, work's been insane. I'm about to board. You've got this. We'll talk when I'm back. I'll take her to the amusement park. Make it up properly." The line went dead. The hollow beeping in my ear seemed to echo in the hushed, fluorescent-lit space. 10 years of marriage, 6 years of motherhood, and his presence in our daughter's life could be tallied on one hand. A soft sigh escaped me as I tucked the phone away, already mentally drafting explanations to cushion Chloe's disappointment. Then, movement caught my eye through the window of the adjacent classroom. I saw him, Daniel, seated among other parents. A little girl cradled in his lap. Her small arms were wrapped tightly around his neck. Her face buried in his collar. She whispered something. I couldn't hear the words, but the shape of them was unmistakable. "Daddy, I love you." His smile was easy, unforced, the kind of smile our daughter had been waiting for. Suddenly, a fair, delicate hand offered the little girl a lollipop. Following the hand, I slowly moved my gaze upward, and the moment I saw the woman, it felt like thunder rumbling in winter. The air around me instantly dropped to freezing. "Stephanie, Daniel's ex-girlfriend." "Daddy, I love you." The child snuggled into Daniel's embrace, expressing her love for Daddy in an incredibly sweet voice. "Daddy loves Chloe too." At that moment, Daniel, my husband, was holding another child and telling her how much he loved her. My breath hitched as I frowned slightly. Tears effortlessly welled up in my eyes. My mind suddenly recalled a month ago when Daniel mentioned seeing Stephanie at the office. It's quite a coincidence. Actually, she's now in charge of one of our partner companies. Haven't seen her in 10 years. She hasn't changed much. Really, she's aged incredibly well. At the time, the hand holding the fork paused slightly. When I heard that name, I knew all too well how deeply in love they once were. I put down my fork and looked up at him. He seemed to finally sense my unease and abruptly stopped his incessant chatter about Stephanie. "Honey, don't overthink it. We broke up 10 years ago, and she even has a child now that she's back, though I heard she divorced her husband because they didn't get along. Truthfully, even then I should have sensed it. Daniel had never truly let go of Stephanie. Otherwise, how could he remember so clearly that they had broken up 10 years ago? Otherwise, how could he know so clearly that she already had a child and had even divorced her husband? All of this silently told me whether it was Daniel 10 years ago or Daniel who married me 10 years later, his regard for Stephanie was something I could never measure up to. Even if we had a child together, it wouldn't change. Just like now, he abandoned us and chose his ex-girlfriend and her daughter. At that moment, I suddenly realized that all those nights he had used such excuses to appease and deceive me. Yes, he didn't know Chloe had just transferred schools. Otherwise, he would have fabricated a more convincing lie to Daniel. Arrived home around 10 o'clock that night when he opened the door and found me still sitting on the couch, watching TV. His hand, which was loosening his tie, paused slightly. "Why aren't you resting yet?" He walked past me, but I could feel an air of disloyalty about him. I watched him go straight to the kitchen, pour a glass of water, and then come sit beside me. The moment the pungent, unfamiliar perfume scent hit my nostrils, I instinctively frowned in revulsion. My mind instantly flashed back to the parent-teacher conference, to the scene of him intimately holding Stephanie during a parent-child game. He, of course, wouldn't know that I had been standing upstairs at that time. I watched with my own eyes as Stephanie pretended to twist her ankle and fall onto the lawn. Daniel quickly knelt down, gently bent over, and picked her up, then placed her on a nearby chair. "You're such a grown woman. How can you still be so clumsy?" When said this, his hand was massaging Stephanie's ankle. In 10 years of marriage, I had never seen him show such tenderness and consideration towards me. "It's just because you're here, so I let my guard down for a moment. You know, with you by my side, I don't have to Worry about, I can just be a happy little kid you used to tell me. That I still remember it at her words. Daniel's hand movements paused. Slightly he looked up at Stephanie, their eyes met, and the profound affection they held for each other was truly undeniable, and it made me sick whether it was 10 years ago or now. Stephanie always found a way to make Daniel's heart stir for her eye, picked up an orange from the table, peeled a segment, and put it in my mouth. The sourness suppressed the feeling of nausea. Why are you looking at me like that? Do I have something on my face? Seeing that I hadn't spoken, just staring straight at him, Daniel put down his glass and instinctively reached up to touch his face. How laughable he still cared about appearances. Weren't you on a business trip today? How did you get back so quickly? His eyes darted away, then he gave an awkward laugh. They were simple projects, went there and came back the same day. Besides, you know, I miss my wife and my Chloe. He leaned in, attempting to embrace me, but I suddenly stood up. His attempt to open his arms and hug me fell short. It's late, let's go to bed. 3 o'clock the next morning, Daniel told me he planned to take Chloe to the amusement park that weekend. When heard the news about going to the amusement park, she happily bounced on her short legs and rushed into Daniel's embrace, watching him say, "Daddy loves you," to her over and over. I felt a sudden sense of unreality, as if all of this was too good to be true, as if he truly loved our child. Yet yesterday he had said, "Daddy loves you," to someone else. How could one person be so hypocritical? Honey, I'm sorry. I know I've neglected you lately, which is why I specifically cleared my schedule this weekend to spend time with you and Chloe. You need to know, no matter what, your place in my heart is irreplaceable. He pulled both Chloe and me into his arms. I had heard those words countless times, from the initial comfort they brought to the current state of indifference. Only a few years had passed. It was then that I began to understand that emotional detachment only happened because some words were never truly meant from the heart. For the weekend arrived as scheduled. After bought the tickets, he single-handedly carried Chloe into the amusement park. He knew I loved carousels, so the first ride he pulled me to was the carousel. I remember Daniel's first date with me was also at an amusement park. Just as I was lost in thought, watching him, a sudden scream erupted from the direction of the pirate ship. A crowd quickly gathered as the carousel slowly came to a stop. Daniel, holding Chloe with one arm and my hand with the other, walked over to see what had happened. They really need to check the equipment at this amusement park more often. There are always problems popping up. Look, another child got hurt. Exactly, and look at all that blood. So pitiful. But where's the kids? Dad, only the mom is here. So irresponsible. Mia, you can't be hurt. You absolutely can't be hurt. You're mommy's precious darling. Daniel was tall, and he could see what was happening at the front of the crowd right away. That name, Mia, made my heart skip a beat. I was about to ask him what was going on when I saw his brows furrow. The next second, he placed Chloe directly in my arms, then pushed through the crowd, rushing forward with such urgency. As the crowd parted, my view gradually became clear. I then realized that the people lying on the ground were Stephanie and her daughter. The children's cries echoed one after another, and the woman's helpless pleas for help made it truly a pitiful sight. Are you okay? What happened? Daniel quickly picked up the little girl, comforted her for a long time, and immediately pulled out his phone to call an ambulance. I don't know, the safety harness on the pirate ship just suddenly released somehow, and then it hit Mia on the forehead. Daniel, what should I do? Mia is bleeding so much. What if something happens to her? Daniel gently put his other arm around her waist and pulled her into his embrace. It's okay, you'll be fine with me here. In that moment, I felt as if Daniel had forgotten he had a wife. The ambulance arrived and Daniel was about to leave with them when I called out to him, "Daniel, where are you going?" "Chloe is waiting for her daddy." Daniel's steps paused slightly. Mia reached out and tightly held his little finger. "Daddy, it hurts." Even after the crowd dispersed, Daniel's words still echoed in my ears. "Grace, Mia's condition isn't good. I can't just abandon her. I'll take her to the hospital and be back soon. Wait for me." Again he chose Stephanie. Again Chloe in my arms pouted and asked me, "Mommy, why do other kids call him daddy too? And why did daddy ignore me and hold another little girl? Does not want us anymore?" I composed myself. "No, this Time we don't want daddy anymore, Daniel. 10 years weren't enough to warm your heart. This time I'm done waiting. 5. The news of Daniel taking Stephanie and her daughter to the hospital ended up on TikTok and quickly reached my parents. Brenda, without a word, called me and told me to come home. Immediately tell me what exactly happened. Daniel is a married man. He should keep his distance from his ex-girl. Doesn't he know that? They had an ambulance and the police and that child's mother was there. Why did he, as an ex-boyfriend, need to go along and get involved? Daughter Brenda is a seasoned woman. She knows exactly what kind of intentions men have. He's clearly trying to rekindle things with that woman. Robert cleared his throat slightly at that moment, cutting off Brenda's next words. Brenda fell silent. After a moment, she asked me, Grace, tell me, what are you thinking now? Are you planning to divorce Daniel or continue living with him? Divorce. I knew clearly that there was no such thing as coincidence in this world. Stephanie appearing again and again around Daniel and me, even trying to interfere with our lives, was nothing more than an attempt to replace me as the person by Daniel's side. Daniel didn't understand her intentions, but I was a woman, and I understood all too well, and my relationship with Daniel had indeed reached its end. Since she wanted him so much, I would just give him to her. After all, I didn't care for Daniel that much anymore. Let's divorce, but the marital assets and Chloe's custody need to be sorted out. I'm already contacting a lawyer. 6. Daniel came home the next morning. His shirt was wrinkled and stubble had grown on his face. It was clear he had been very diligent in taking care of Mia. I walked into the kitchen and saw a matcha cake, which I liked, placed on the counter. Daniel quickly followed me. Grace, don't be mad. I turned around and handed him the glass of water I had poured. Why would I be mad? Are you talking about what happened yesterday? I smiled. Mia is just a child. She got hurt. It's only right that you, as Stephanie's friend, extended a helping hand to her daughter. You did the right thing. I should commend you for it. Why would I be upset with you? A flicker of astonishment crossed Daniel's eyes. Looking at his expression, I found it laughable. Had forgotten what he said to me when I had just given birth to Chloe and was suffering from postpartum depression, screaming hysterically at him every day. He said, Grace, can you stop acting like a lunatic? It's really annoying. He said, Grace, you need to learn from Stepha, learn from others to be more understanding. It's not just you who's stressed. I'm stressed too. At the time, though my mind was exhausted, I clearly understood that the person he was referring to was Stephanie. It was after that day that my love for him gradually faded, and I never lost my temper with him again. I thought living together, just going through the motions as a couple, would be tolerable, but I never expected Daniel accepted the glass of water in a daze. Oh, by the way, is Mia okay now? I walked to the dining table, sat down, and slowly savored the matcha cake. It's nothing serious, just some superficial scratches. Stephanie was too worried about her, which is why she panicked for a moment. That's good, but I put down my knife and fork and looked up at him. You need to remember, you absolutely cannot do something like that again, otherwise Chloe said she won't want you as her daddy anymore. Daniel nodded, promising there would never be a next time. 7. After that day, Daniel started coming home on time every day and even began bringing me gifts. So when Stephanie actively sought me out, I wasn't surprised at all. Grace, 10 years later, you really have changed a lot. I was standing at the kindergarten entrance, waiting for Chloe to be dismissed. She walked up to me, her familiar, strong perfume scent, silently declaring, Whoa, by the way, this perfume smells pretty good, doesn't it? Daniel bought it for me several months ago when he was on a business trip abroad. I just casually mentioned I was running out of perfume, and I never expected him to remember it. He even gave this perfume to me as a birthday gift. She turned, smiling at me. Hearing her words, I smiled faintly. You're still as pretentious and affected as you were 10 years ago. Even your daughter has learned your ways perfectly. It's just a bottle of perfume after all. To be so easily moved by it, it's tasteless and cheap. The smile on her lips froze at that moment. The next second, she showed her trademark gentle expression. Whether it's pretentious or hypocritical, as long as Daniel likes it, that's all that matters. Just then, the kindergarten's dismissal bell rang, and I saw Chloe happily run out Mia, Stephanie's daughter, suddenly appeared behind her and harshly pushed her when I rushed over. Chloe's entire hand was badly injured and her forehead had started to bleed. My anger surged at that moment. I grabbed Mia, who was standing not far away, and mimicking her actions, forcefully pushed her to the ground. Grace, what are you doing? Before could even speak, I heard Daniel's furious voice beside me. No wonder Mia had suddenly pushed Chloe like that, and I could only watch as Daniel went to Mia's side, picked her up, and gently soothed her in his arms. Mia, be a good girl, we're brave little ones, no crying. Daniel, Mia just accidentally pushed Chloe and she didn't mean to, but Grace, as an adult, actually hurt a child. Isn't that too much? Stephanie's eyes were red and she spoke to Daniel with a wrong expression. I couldn't be bothered to argue with them and immediately picked up Chloe. Daniel, there's nothing more to say, let's get divorced. With that, I immediately left. Chloe's injuries were the most important thing right now. Chloe's fall and injury made Brenda even more displeased with Daniel. She took one look at Chloe's bandaged wound and disliked Daniel even more. Mom, I need you to take care of Chloe for a couple of days. I've asked Daniel for a divorce. When I returned to the apartment, Daniel was already home. The sound of the door closing quickly startled. He had clearly just finished washing up and came out of the bedroom. The moment he saw me, he didn't say a word, walking straight to the couch and sitting down. I followed his steps, then took a signed divorce papers from my bag and placed it in front of him. He scoffed. Grace, you're so eager to divorce me? Shouldn't you apologize first? I raised an eyebrow, looking at him with an amused and somewhat cynical expression. Apologize? Why should I apologize? He declared that I had dared to push a little girl in public, and for that alone, I should apologize properly to Mia. Daniel pushing her was just a warning. If I could, I'd really like to slap Stephanie twice. Daniel's mouth gaped open as he stared at me. You? What are you saying? Am I wrong? Stephanie has repeatedly provoked our relationship in front of me, even going so far as to use her own daughter to compete for you. I truly find her methods both foolish and ridiculous, but you, on the other hand, are unbelievably naive, falling into her traps again and again. Because of this, I seriously wonder if Mia might be your love child. With Stephanie, Daniel suddenly stood up and violently shoved me to the ground. Grace, I never thought you'd be this kind of person, blaming everything on innocent people. Just as Stephanie said, all your tenderness and consideration were just a facade. Being with someone like you makes me feel so suffocated. Since it had come to this, I didn't want to say anything more than let's get divorced. It's not like you lack a daughter. Daniel, infuriated, pulled a pen directly from his pocket, then with a flourish signed his name on the divorce papers. Grace, don't you dare regret this if you come begging me like a dog later. I'll only look down on you even more. I laughed. My biggest regret was being by Andy enough to fall for you and marry you. With that, I left without looking back. 9. The searing pain in my wrist made my forehead suddenly break out in a cold sweat. I held a cab by the road and went to City General Hospital. I checked into the emergency room. The nurse told me to wait in the examination room as the on-duty doctor was still on rounds and would be over shortly. Time ticked by the sound of dress shoes in the hallway grew from distant to near until the door opened. A familiar face unexpectedly appeared before me. Long time no see. Ethan's gentle smile made me feel as if I was back 15 years ago to the day I first met him. Ethan was practically a surgeon trained by Brenda. Back then, Ethan was Brenda's most brilliant student. Every weekend he would come to our house to join us for meals. Ethan was exceptionally gifted. Just 1 year after graduation, he flawlessly performed a highly complex surgery through his own skill, quickly gaining favor with the leadership at his workplace. As would say, Ethan is a man who is smart, handsome, earns well, and knows how to spoil his wife. He's clearly the best candidate for dating and marriage. When said this to me, her expression made it seem as if she wanted to go back to being 20 and marry Ethan herself. However, while I agreed that Ethan was smart, handsome, and earned well, I never agreed he knew how to spoil people. After all, from the day I first met him, he had done nothing but relentlessly tease me. For instance, when he learned I'd been confessed to by an older student at school, he would Always tell Brenda immediately, and every time Brenda found out I was on the verge of dating, she would first laugh and thank Ethan for telling her, then grab a stern lecture and chase me all over the house. Another example, when he came to our house for meals on weekends, he would always take my favorite ribs right in front of me, making me watch as he enjoyed every bite. Even worse, with Ethan around, academic ranking at school became perpetually fixed as always second place, and every time results were announced, he would walk up to me with a cheeky grin and say, "Hello there." Always second place. Ethan had absolutely nothing to do with the word spoiling. The throbbing pain in my wrist suddenly pulled me out of my thoughts. When I refocused, I saw him wearing gold-rimmed glasses, head bowed, meticulously and carefully tending to my wrist injury. I never imagined that 15 years later, we would reunite under such disheveled circumstances. All done. Ethan's pleasant magnetic voice reached my ears. I withdrew my hand and prepared to leave. The moment my palm touched the doorknob, his voice from behind stopped me instinctively. "Grace, I'll drive you back. It's hard to get a cab at this hour." 10. The car started driving smoothly on the road. Perhaps it was the overly familiar sandalwood scent in the car, but I simply leaned back in the seat and drifted off into a deep sleep. In a haze, I seemed to dream of the first time I met Daniel. It was a month after the final exams before college, on the day the school rankings were announced. That day I was being tormented by my period, making my temper exceptionally bad. Seeing once again ranked above me on the school, I felt even more down and irritable. So when Ethan appeared before me with that smug smile, I instinctively thought he was going to brag you. The moment he opened his mouth, I interrupted him. "I'm so sick of you, Ethan." Perhaps my tone that day was too cold. As I turned to leave, I caught a glimpse of what looked like a flicker of hurt in Ethan's eyes, and he appeared at that very moment even more coincidentally. He applied to the same college as me. Meanwhile, my Brenda found out that Ethan was going to study abroad and might not come back after attending the same college as Daniel. He began to replace Ethan, accompanying me through my 4 years of college. After graduation, we successfully married and had Chloe. Just when I thought life would continue like this quietly, Stephanie suddenly reappeared. She disrupted the peaceful life we had built. Actually, I should be grateful to her. If it weren't for her, I truly wouldn't have realized how vulnerable this marriage, which I once found so fulfilling, truly was. My tears began to flow silently. A warmth on my face slowly brought me back to consciousness. When I opened my eyes, I found that the car had already pulled up to the front door. He's not worth crying over 5 years, and you've turned into such a crybaby. You used to be such a strong fighter when you teased me. Ethan always knew how to lift my spirits, just like now. Because of his words, I instinctively wanted to retort, "Who teased you? It was clearly you teasing me." I turned my head away and haphazardly wiped away my tears. The atmosphere in the car suddenly grew quiet. I turned to look and saw him sigh slightly. "Then do you know that when you like someone, you subconsciously want to tease them?" 11. Even though it was dark, his gaze toward me was bright and intense. Just as I stood there in a daze, the car window was suddenly forcefully knocked on from the outside. Daniel stood by the car, looking at Ethan and me with a grim face. After I got out of the car, before I could even speak, Daniel said to me in a harsh, sarcastic tone, "Grace, we're not even divorced yet, and you're already so eager to find your next partner." I just found it laughable. We had already signed the divorce papers, and Ethan and I were perfectly innocent. Yet he wasn't reflecting on himself, but coming to bother me instead. Daniel, angered, without a word, prepared to grab me, but pushed him away. Daniel, who worked in an office for so long, was quite out of shape. He stumbled a few steps and fell to the ground. I patted Ethan. "Let's go." Brenda became very worried. After learning about this, she seized every opportunity to ask me, "Tell me, is there any possibility between you and Ethan?" And I tirelessly answered her question again and again. "Mom, life isn't a TV show. I have a child. How could a highly eligible bachelor like him be interested in me? Besides, I just got divorced. I'm not in the mood for such things." 12. After a month of separation, Daniel and I went to City Hall to get our divorce decree. On the day of the divorce, Stephanie also appeared before me with Daniel. She was holding Daniel's arm, smiling. Triumphantly, I really didn't understand why she was so smug about something I know. Longer wanted grace, don't be mad at. Daniel, emotions are the hardest things to control. Daniel likes me, which means our fate hasn't ended. Yet she spoke so well I almost threw up my breakfast. If everyone who likes you is fate, Cupid must have no idea. He's tied so many red strings for you, Grace. You weren't this aggressive. Daniel frowned and spoke, but I felt annoyed and walked into City Hall. Ahead of him the paperwork took only a few minutes. Stepping out of City Hall with the divorce decree in my hand, there was heartache, sadness, but also an unprecedented sense of relief. After all, for such a long time I had always played the agreeable role Daniel liked in front of him, and now I could finally choose to be free and be myself, to celebrate my return to single life and my escape from that jerk. Brenda specially made a huge feast for me. She even invited Ethan. It was an open secret. After dinner, Brenda pulled Ethan aside, asking him all sorts of questions. Chloe, meanwhile, wanted to play with building blocks in the living room, so I had no choice but to awkwardly be the third wheel in the living room. Ethan, do you have a girlfriend now? I'm telling you, you're not getting any younger. Do you want Aunt to set you up with someone? Brenda asked subtly. Ethan smiled faintly. Just as I thought he would reject Brenda's matchmaking suggestion, he suddenly said, Aunt, I have someone I like. Chloe's building blocks suddenly collapsed, startling me. 13. A little later, Brenda ordered me to walk Ethan out. As we reached the door, I said awkwardly, Mai has been saying some confusing things lately. Please don't mind her if she offended you. I apologize first. Ethan wasn't foolish, and neither was I. He was so excellent, so wonderful that I didn't dare to get close to him. I still clearly remembered Chloe telling me on the night of the divorce, Mommy, are you going to divorce Daddy? I didn't want to lie to her, so I nodded. I knew that when parents divorced, the child was always the most hurt, but if I didn't do this, I feared Daniel would cause even more harm to her in the future. Mommy, don't cry. Actually, I've already forgotten what Daddy looks like now. Uncle plays with me every day, takes me to the amusement park, and watches cartoons with me. I've already considered him my daddy in my heart. Mommy, does Uncle like you? Chloe looked up, and I stared at her in surprise, asking her why she would say that several times. I've seen Uncle secretly watching you busy in the kitchen. Our teacher said that when you like someone, you constantly want to look at them. So, Mommy, do you like Uncle? Did I like Ethan? Ethan said with a gentle smile. And is my teacher and your mom? Why would I mind any of that? I'm still waiting for Aunt to introduce me to a girlfriend. 14 later, I heard from a friend that on the day Daniel and Stephanie were preparing to get married, Stephanie's ex-husband suddenly showed up. For some reason, it was then that Daniel learned that Stephanie hadn't voluntarily divorced him. Rather, her ex-husband had initiated the divorce. The reason was that Stephanie had been promiscuous after marriage, not only having affairs with other men, but also giving birth to Mia, whose biological father was unknown. Stephanie's ex-husband, unable to tolerate being cheated on him, had proposed divorce to Step Haney, but would not divorce him so easily. She hired a lawyer, forcefully taking half of her ex-husband's assets, and even spread rumors that her ex-husband had cheated during their marriage. While she, throughout it all, was merely a victim, her ex-husband simply couldn't endure it any longer, which is why he actively sought her out, and Daniel at that moment learned the whole truth. Don't look at me, Parma catches up to them. I merely played right into her hands. Ethan was currently holding Chloe and watching cartoons, occasionally feeding her fruit. Oh, by the way, there aren't many groceries in the fridge. Let's go to the supermarket together later to buy some ribs. That Chloe. Just as we were leaving, I received a call from Brenda, telling me to come over immediately. I'll warn you first, Daniel has been pleading on the doorstep for a day and a night now. Prepare yourself. When took Chloe and me home, we saw Daniel looking haggard, kneeling on the ground. His actions quickly drew a crowd, and seeing people discussing him animatedly, I only felt disgust. Daniel too was met with the same disgust, but I knew that if I were to approach him now, I'd only be putting myself on the spot. Ethan asked if I wanted to go talk to him. I shook my head and walked into the neighborhood, but to my surprise, Daniel Saw me first, he stumbled to his feet, trying to grab my hand, but Ethan was quicker, blocking his move and forcefully pushing him away. Grace, I never thought Daniel, after our divorce, would end up in such a sorry state after all. Back then he was so certain, in front of me, that I would never leave him, but now he was the one filled with regret. Grace, I was wrong. I was really wrong. Could you give me another chance to win you back? This time, whatever you say, I'll agree to it, even if you don't consider my feelings. Think about Chloe. You don't want her to grow up without a father and be ridiculed, do you? What he said was really laughable. Did he really think Chloe liked him that much? Kids are smarter than him. They understand that whoever treats them well receives their affection in return. You're wrong. Chloe already has a father and she's long forgotten who you are. Daniel, don't be so full of yourself, and besides, you're the one who said not to come begging me like a dog. Acting like this only makes me despise you. With that, ignoring his tearful plea, I pulled Ethan into the elevator. The elevator door slowly closed. I saw Daniel slump to the ground, his eyes utterly vacant as he stared at me. Later, I heard from Brenda that Daniel had drunk so much he suffered stomach bleeding. Even after treatment, he continued drinking, and now he has stomach cancer. I'm afraid he doesn't have much time left. Do you want to go see him? I hear he's been calling your name. I shook my head. It wasn't that I hadn't given him chances, he just didn't know how to cherish them. He should understand that in this world no one will ever stand still and wait for him. He could have had a happy and complete family, but he chose to betray that happiness. Behind that choice, he had to bear all the consequences himself, including the pain. Grace, I bought your favorite spicy fish stew tonight. I'll cook something special for you and Aunt. Ethan's voice pulled me back to reality. I nodded. There's no turning back in this world. From the day Daniel chose to betray me, I had already left him in my heart. Thank you for watching today's story. If you enjoyed this video, please like it and share it with your friends. We look forward to hearing your thoughts in the comments section. Feel free to share your opinions and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more exciting stories. See you next time.